Good morning. Good morning, and welcome all of our friends to today's show with the Fabulous Five, where our topic today is healthy relationships, how to find it and how to keep it. So we extend today a special welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. You can find out more about our center by going to our website. It's at www.cslpalmdesert.org. We also welcome back those of you that continue to be present with us each and every week. We appreciate so much your presence and your participation. We absolutely love your questions. I know that every person here today will receive something really special from this program. It might be from the words shared or exchanged, the topic expanded, or maybe it's from an intriguing question somebody in our audience extends. Whatever the source, I know this greater good will feed each person here to become even more aware of their relationship with the One, and each will feel this oneness to an even greater degree than before. With that introduction, I now invite you to take a deep breath in, settle in, and join me in our opening invocation. Immersing in this sacred moment, this is what I know. There is only one. Call it love, peace, wisdom, joy, light, maybe beauty. This intelligent energy is everywhere present, all powerful, and it is always giving of itself without hesitation. And I know that I am, and each person here is made in the image and likeness of this One. As we move into the month of February, as the warmth and light begin its return, I am so grateful for the powerful light within each person here, and for knowing that this light is always present, growing and expanding as we move into our topic today. Please join me in saying, and so it is. So we always like to begin our time together with a question that allows you as our audience to know us at a deeper level. And our question for today is brought to us by Rev William Conway. And here it is. Whether you're in a relationship now or not, what is the biggest thing you have learned from relationships? So my answer to this question is really captured in a quote by Alexander Pope. And he said, "To err is human, to forgive is divine." And what he meant by that, and why I choose this quote as my answer, is that no matter how intimate, how close, how authentic the relationship, we all make mistakes. And I'm pointing at myself. We all make mistakes as we navigate this earthly journey. And at the same time, we all have the ability to forgive. And what does forgiveness mean? You know, it doesn't mean that we simply condone all behavior, not at all. It means that we realize the divine expression of forgiveness, that there's nothing to forgive, for nothing happens ever to us. Rather, everything happens through us. So that's my answer to this powerful question today. Reverend Bradley, what do you have to say around this question?
Awesome, and I bet our listeners are going to see a theme through here. Thanks for reminding us of Alexander Pope's a quote, "To err is human, to forgive divine." It kind of goes along the same lines. My suggestion always for myself, and someone can take it if they want, is just always be as truthful as you can. But it's very subtle, and I'll give you a great example that I learned years ago. Through some books I was reading, probably through therapy, marriage counseling. You know, when you're with your partner and they say, "Well, let's go to dinner. Where do you want to go?" And you say, "I don't care." for most people, I think they really don't care. They just want to be with you, and they can eat, a American cheese sandwich in the gutter. They just want to hang out with you and enjoy your company. But the energy that it creates, especially between males and females, in my opinion and my studies, is that often the woman will think you're being indecisive, as well as in other relationships that I've seen it in, even with buddies. They think you're being indecisive instead of just saying what you want. And once I got that in all my relationships, boy, they were just better and healthier. When you say, what do you want to do? I want to meet Tuesday at 3:00. Well, and then you start the negotiation of that doesn't work for me. What can we do instead? But it's still just speaking up and making a decision is part of it. And then just speaking the truth. Right now I'm feeling shitty. I don't need you to do anything. I don't need you to fix me. Can you just listen? And you may have heard me share here, even with my buddies. One buddy started in our group. He said the phrase, I have a share. And again, that was a code word for all of us so whoever says that means they don't want to be fixed. They don't want you to give them a solution. They just want to be seen and heard for what they're doing or for what they're sharing. And it was just a really healthy way to be. So in all relationships, it's like, make a decision and then go forward. And if you need to negotiate, but also just speak up and say what's really on your mind. And the other person's emotions or upset, I bet happens less because they can feel your truthfulness. That's what I've observed. They can feel your truthfulness of your heart coming out, not something you're making up to slightly cover. So that's my 2 cents. How about you, Irvin Cheryl?
One of the things I think I learned since I've been in this teaching, and I actually learned it at a wedding ceremony that Joe was conducting at our center. And I honestly don't remember who was getting married or anything about it. But this one thing that he said really struck me because I saw myself in this pattern. And what he said was, first of all, Joe will not light a unity candle where, oh, now we're going to become one. Where a lot of people, when you think marriage, oh, now we're just one. But what Joe says is that's not true. You are still both walking your path, but you decided to walk alongside each other. And so instead of which, I was brought up in a different type of teaching where the woman was supposed to be submissive and a good wife was the one that just the husband was the leader of the family. She didn't have a voice, nothing. Just follow the rules. And that was a good wife. And so what I ended up doing is I would jump on somebody else's path. In other words, whatever their desires, whatever they wanted, what their dreams were, I suddenly just, those were mine. And so, but then what ends up happening is I would start getting resentful because I can honestly say that if you ask somebody that I had been with in the past what my dreams and what my desires were, they would tell you what theirs are because that's what they thought I wanted and who I was. And so what you end up feeling is that you don't have a voice. And so I think for a healthy relationship, just like Brad said, and like Reverend Gail and Reverend Brad have said, was that it's about forgiveness, but it's also about just walking your own path and doing what makes you happy, because then that reflects into the relationship is the way I feel. And, having your own dreams and your own desires, the own things that you want to accomplish in life, not just what somebody else wants to do and what their dreams are. And, it's just, but that was my mistake in that and I think that in every relationship, it's 50-50. And if I'm not speaking and if I'm not using my voice, I have no right to be angry with the other person. I have no right to be resentful because they have no idea what I'm doing. So it's like one of those things, but you're supposed to read my mind. You're supposed to know what I want, and that's not the truth. But I really think that was And I said that at my daughter's wedding, when I had to give a toast, and I said, just remember, you're both on your own path, and just stay there, and just know that you're walking alongside each other. And so that was the biggest lesson I learned. And so now I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful Reverend Dale.
Thank you, Reverend Cheryl. And I think what I've learned is the perfect segue to what you said, because what I've learned about relationships is the communication channel has to be wide open. And I've been blessed to do a lot of work with spiritual counseling, work with couples. And when they come to me, their communication has totally broken down and they don't speak to each other. And I think when we can take time to just turn away the outside world and the distractions, and for the couple to come together just heart to heart and speak from the heart and listen from the heart, it really enhances the relationship. And to what Reverend Cheryl was saying, we don't become one entity when we become married or in a couple. We're still two individual souls having their own journey, and it's so vitally important for a relationship to thrive to be able to communicate the journey. And we bring so much stuff from our individual experiences to a relationship that there's assumptions, there's misunderstandings, and if we communicate on a regular basis in a place where it's just the two of you speaking heart to heart, we can really understand each other and see where we might be misperceiving and where we can come to a healthier way of communicating what we're going through and what the other person needs from us. So it's all about communication as far as I'm concerned, as well as what everybody else has said. And I'm going to throw it over to Reverend William to take us on.
Well, good morning. Thank you all very much for sharing. And yes, every single one of those answers was a great way to learn from. But I'd also like to say this: healthy relationships. We've all talked about relationships as a couple, but relationships goes beyond just being a couple. Relationships are friendships, any type of interaction that we have on a regular basis with another human being. So yes, communication, with what Reverend Dale said, is right at the top of my list. But the one thing that I personally have learned is when it comes to communication, you don't necessarily have to say exactly what you were thinking, because there's times where what I'm thinking inside of my head is not exactly what needs to be said, because once it is said, I have learned you can never take that back. I learned that as a child, being taught to by my parents, and I learned from that so that when I was then the parent, there was times, I tell you what, I could wring my kids' necks and I could say some pretty heavy stuff to them. But always in the back of my mind, I always thought about what I was about to say, because I knew once it was spoken, it could never be taken back. And so for me, the biggest thing I've learned about relationship is to be truthful. Yes, most definitely. Have the compassion, but also be thoughtful and conscious of your own thoughts. And would you want to be spoken to in that manner? That to me has been the biggest lesson that I've learned when it comes to relationships. Be the person that you want to be. Speak to the person as you want to be spoken to. Now, as we get into this day about relationships, and yes, this relationship topic that I'm talking about isn't just about a committed relationship between two people. It is relationships on all dynamics, because the truth is every type of interaction is a relationship. And as I was looking up about relationships and stuff, it was kind of interesting to see the suggestions that all these websites were giving. And so I have a few written down here, kind of mini topics that I'd like to talk about and each one of us discuss. So the first one I'd like to talk about is one of the biggest things that when you look up this subject, is be candid about your feelings. And yes, it it is perfectly all right and perfectly healthy to talk about your feelings, because it gives that other person an idea of where you're coming from. So this is going to be a very short introduction, because I want a lot of interaction between all of us and our individual thoughts upon these little mini subjects. So when it comes to being candid about your feelings, I do agree with that, but also with the standpoint of having some reservations, because like I said, for what I see in relationships is what you say can't be taken back. And I'd like to see from my other reverends here, my friends and my family, what are your thoughts about being candid about all of your feelings? So I open up the floor.
So I'm happy to jump in. William, thank you for that great introduction. So I want to start by echoing what William just said. When we're talking about relationships, particularly when we're talking about loving relationships, we're not talking about just with your romantic partner. We're talking about all relationships. So I thought it was really fun when I contemplated this subject that we're in the month of February, and that's Happy Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's upcoming to everybody. And that means this is a month where thoughts of love and of romance are in the air. So our topic today has a lot to do with attracting loving relationships. And in William's words, in keeping loving relationships. He talked about both. How do we attract them? And then how do we nurture them and keep them? And I really wondered, as I was contemplating this topic for today, what Ernest Holmes had to say about relationships and love, both attracting relationships and love and keeping them. And in the Science of Mind textbook, I found a quotation from the Gospel of John that I wanted to read to you today. And this is what it says. Love is an essence, an atmosphere, which defies analysis, as does life itself. It is that which is and cannot be explained. The essence of love, while elusive, pervades everything, fires the heart, stimulates the emotions, renews the soul, and proclaims the spirit. And I love this part. Only love knows love. And love knows only love. So Ernest Holmes also said, use the law of attraction. He said, attract the kind of relationship you desire, both in friendships and in romantic relationships. He said, imagine the ideal relationship for you, but not a specific individual. In other words, don't outline. Let the universe do that work for you. Know what you want in a relationship, but leave the how to the universe. And what did Ernest Holmes then say about the second part of William's question? How do you keep a relationship strong? How do you nurture it? Well, for an enduring, a true, a really worthwhile, deep relationships, Holmes said, cultivate an attitude of love. And that's because we attract what we first become, what we are. So send out love vibrations. Then we're going to receive love in return. In order to be loved, be loving. And as John said in the first quote that I shared, love knows love. So I think in summary, what Ernest Holmes was sharing with us is that the infinite mind knows where each person is, and the hidden currents of its activities are in motion to bring us together with our right and perfect love always. So with that, let's see, I'm wondering who wants to go next. It looks like it will be Reverend Cheryl.
Well, and I love this thought of everything is coming from love, and it is. That's the only way it can. It doesn't always appear that way or appear to us that way, but that's because we've got something else going on that we're not able to perceive it. But, you know, even like Gail was saying, Reverend Gail was saying, was that even in friendships, there is a certain amount of give and take in a relationship. And when you have a friendship, it can't be all one-sided. You know, I know that each and every one of us probably at some point have been in a friendship that you realize after a while that you're doing all the work and they're just showing up. And like one of my friends, Renee Beal, she's a practitioner at our center. She can plan the most magnificent, fabulous adventures. I'm serious. I've been on some adventures with her that just, how do you come up with these things? But then she started feeling that, she started realizing that unless she was doing all the planning and she was doing all the work, then nobody else was, you know, reaching out and doing that. So every relationship is not 100% given to it. It's 50-50. And if you're not holding up your side of the relationship, then it's unbalanced. And that's what I think that our whole universe is about. If you really think about it, is perfect balance. And everything is just level and everything is just exactly what it is. It's pure love. It's just pure forgiveness. All of these things are part of the essence of our universe. And I think that we as individualized expressions of God are here to express that. And so sometimes we get this idea, though, that we're the 100% of the relationship. Well, that's not a relationship. You're just in there by yourself. Everything has to be in balance, and everything with communication and with forgiveness and with just coming from a place of love. That's how you keep the balance, is what I believe. So I'm turning this over now to
Bradley.
Wonderful Reverend Bradley.
So, Reverend Williams' question, can you be candid about your feelings? Right off the bat, I'd probably answer, hell no. And now that we have your attention, is majority of people don't know how to share whatever's on their heart and mind to take responsibility for what's on their heart and mind. A lot of times we want to share, you know, you're making me mad, or I'm upset with you, or something along those lines. And if our thinking creates our life, and my life is a reflection of what's inside me, then I have to take responsibility for what's inside me. And I personally think a great tool to learn that is the Teachings of Real Love by Dr. Greg Bear. And you've heard me mention off and on because it just was a huge tool for my parenting life, my friendship life, my intimate life, and with my marriage, to take responsibility for me. So it's always okay for me to say, I'm feeling crappy right now. I'm just, feeling sad, or I'm feeling upset. And it's still going to be up to the other person to be okay with where you are. But the more often we do that and we set the boundaries of, I just want to share where I am. And I don't mean to point the finger at you. I just need to share where I am because the energy is within me. And I know I can share whatever's within me in a safe place because you love me and I love you. If you share your feelings from that place, only healing can take place, right? This is what I'm feeling. But if we do it in too much of a codependent way and sugarcoat it with something else, then the person who's listening to us is not getting the real true us of what we're trying to express. Because as soon as they see the real you, happy, frustrated, they can connect with that. If there's any kind of shell, see how I've mentioned even twice in my sharing so far today, they don't know who is really there. And they'll either pick that up consciously or subconsciously. So Reverend Gail's wisdom, I'm sure, is going to add to this wonderfulness.
I think I'm next. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to bring two threads in here to answer Reverend Williams' question about can we be candid about our feelings and relationships. And it reminds me of how much damage we have around our feelings and being able to express them. It's just what we've learned and what our society has reinforced, having to triple think and question our feelings and not feeling courageous to speak what our feelings are, and not even having the vocabulary. A lot of us don't have the vocabulary to articulate our feelings. So it brings to mind that there's still a lot of work in society and the collective consciousness around being able to express our feelings and do so in a healthy way and a mindful way where we can all communicate, all levels, because it's about living in that authentic stream of who we are. And feelings are a big part of that. So, there's definitely work to do in any relationship. Like Reverend William talked about, this show really isn't about just romantic relationships, it's about all of them. And so it's cultivating that ability to be able to express our feelings, because when we don't express our feelings, that's where a lot of trouble happens inside of ourselves. Another thread I just want to weave into our conversation is the relationship with the self, because everything starts with our relationship with who we are. And just from my experience, when I was coming up in my life, my relationship with myself was not very good. And hence my romantic relationships and friendships weren't very good either, because I wasn't right inside of myself with myself. And so all roads to me come back to home, to ourselves and how we see ourselves and how we're relating with ourselves. And we identify with that divine nature and that wonderfulness that we are, or not? Because if we're not respecting and loving ourselves, that's going to flow into our choices that we make and who we bring into our lives and our interactions. So I just wanted to throw that one out there for the group to either consider or not. I'm going to pass it on to Reverend William now.
I tell you what, every one of those comments about that first question was wonderful. And I can tell that we could spend a lot of time on a few questions that I have listed here. So I'm going to kind of consolidate some and pick up some that have really started to stand out as we've started this communications. So one of the things that they also said as I looked up this information is figure out the recurring issues in your relationships. Don't expect your partner to be your BFF. That's kind of funny. And here's a big one. Choose to love your partner every day. All three of those are great antidotes on how to deal with that relationship that you're having. To have that open mind, to be coming from outside of yourself. That I like these. But here's the thing I want to talk about. All of these topics, and I want the rest of my cohorts to comment on that, is this. The recurring thing that I see about every single one of these issues, and I might have a couple more here if we have time, but they are all coming from affect. Now, if you've been coming to the center for a while, you understand that one of the biggest, the cornerstones of this philosophy is cause and effect. We know that spirit is everything. All life in all its forms is nothing but spirit unfolding. That truth, that life is cause. It's the first thing that ever happens. Everything else, everything that you see that is physical, that is form, is effect. So when we talk about all these suggestions and ideas, I want you to start to see how these are all answers to problems that are effects. So you're talking about an effect or coming from the side of the problem to fix the problem. So I'd like my other reverends to talk a little bit more about that. If they, now that I've spoken about it, do they kind of see that umbrella of talking about solutions so far that that people are talking about trying to find a solution from the problem side of the equation? So I open again right now the forum about your thoughts about this.
So Reverend William, I'll jump in after you. Effects. So I want to address that. First of all, I think it's really interesting that I've kind of counted since we began our session today, and we've used the word issue at least 5 times in our discussion. And that's exactly what an effect is, right? It's an issue that we have recognized. And I just want to segue into that. I loved what Reverend Gail talked about as far as how important it is to get people together and have them speak from their heart. Because now we're getting into what she also referenced, which is feelings. We can try to address issues, the effects, or we can come from that heart space and address feelings. And what's so important about feelings is that, number one, they're difficult for all of us. We live in the issues. We live in our head, and in our head is where we formulate the issues. And it's very interesting when we work with people, as Dale indicated, as practitioners and as ministers, we often even find that it's very difficult for people to drop into their heart and to even express from a feelings or that heart or soul space, because we live so much of our time in the issues and in our head. So I love that you brought that up, Reverend William, because that's all from affect. Issues are all from affect. And I love what Reverend Cheryl said about, in her analogy with her friend Renee, is, it's a sharing. It's a sharing from the heart. And Barbara Bush shared, I'll share one of her quotes, and I won't get it exactly right, but the essence will be correct. And Barbara Bush said that the key to any enduring relationship is that each party gives at least 60%. And that really stuck with me because I feel like that's really true. But coming back to the effects question that William raised, relationships can be both wonderful and challenging, and they are both wonderful and challenging. And in every relationship, there are things that we expect, things that we can count on, and things that absolutely are unexpected and really not desired as well. And yet somehow all of it is a gift from within. It's beyond our emotions, it's beyond our ego, it's beyond our need for control. And it's through this realization that I come to know that it's okay, that there are some things that are unexpected, some things out of my control, because the only thing I can really control is how I respond to this often wild and mysterious world of relationships. And I can always choose to respond from love. So for me, to respond from love means that I allow all of life and all of its unexpectedness to take me deeper into myself and discover a greater life happening beneath the surface. Because I believe that love is really a conscious surrender. So underneath all of my plans, underneath my need for control, there's a deeper meaning that's waiting to emerge in all of my relationships. And though the feelings that accompany my relationships can often feel uncomfortable or maybe even overwhelming, when I respond from love, even within the chaos, I know that love, truly love, is still present, that love is still with me. It's that love that guides us. It protects us. It allows us to experience all that life brings. And love is what allows us to respond from a place of both acceptance and deep peace in any relationship. And that's where we want to come from love, and then have the ability to respond. So let me see who's going to jump in after me. I think it will be Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Reverend Gail. I keep forgetting to say Reverend today, but these are people that have been in my tribe for so long that I forget. But I honor and respect every one of you for going through this journey to become a reverend. So please forgive me if I forget. But I'm I was thinking about what Gail was saying, and also the other word that keeps coming up that is the most vital one, I think, is communication. And I know that in my own life, what I have done is that I have felt like my feelings and my thoughts were not important, and that they weren't important enough in the relationship. All I had to do was do all the work and try and prop it up, keep it going. But without communicating what my needs were. Or if I did finally reach a point where I turned into a raging volcano and just spewed everything, it wasn't effective, because then I start accusing them of being, and I'm painting them with my thoughts about who they are. And I'm trying to tell them when I'm yelling or I'm upset or whatever, who I think they are from my perspective. But I just had to realize that the reason that I was feeling all this resentment and anger or whatever was not because of the other person. It was because I did not use my voice. And I put it under, like they say, put your light under a bushel basket. I just damped myself down and just kind of existed. And that's no way to live. That's no way to live at all. And you just have to feel like that you're as valid in a relationship as the other person is. And see, what I would do, I'd put this person up here on this pedestal. Oh, they're so great and wonderful, but I'm not, And so how can I expect to ever have a good relationship? And see, as far as I'm concerned, I've been single for 14 years and I love it, because it's the best relationship I've ever had in my life, and it's with myself. And that was the hardest relationship to form, and the hardest one to start to recognize that I have a voice and I am valid. Nobody can invalidate me except for me. And so it was just such a great feeling to know that I have now developed a great relationship with myself. So, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. I want another relationship. No, but it's just, once you get to that place, like Dale so beautifully said, and Gail, all of us have said in some sense, is when you've got that perfect, loving relationship with yourself, where you forgive yourself for all the little dumb things you do, or things that you do, or inconsiderate thought, not being thoughtful or whatever. And you can just say, oh, okay, come on, give yourself a break. Love yourself. And I've reached that point. So that's the best feeling of all. That's the best relationship I have right now. And I have a lot of wonderful ones too, but I just love having this relationship with myself. And who's going to go next?
I forgot I'm Q&A monitor. So before Reverend William, we got a really great quote from somebody. I think I know who this is. They said, communication in relationships is important, but listening first is the key. And so very true. Listening is huge. And it's so enhancing to relationships as well. And I know we're teaching practitioner training right now, Dr. Laura and I, and we are teaching people the value of listening, and for people just to be heard and understood is so important. And I think beyond just relationships with whether it's a friend or whether it's a loved ones, I think in our society right now, we're seeing that we really need to be listening to each other instead of judging and criticizing and disregarding people. And so I love that this person wrote this, because communication is about both listening and speaking and being able to move forward in whatever relationship is happening. So Reverend Reverend William, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so very much. Yes. And everyone, thank you so much for the comments. We truly do love them, and we do see them. We may not get to every single comment, but don't think that we don't see those. But I would like to say this in regards to what Diane wrote. She talked about the ego, and Wayne Dyer says, edging God out is the ego. And that is so true. When we come from ourselves and we don't come from love, we're coming from that idea of what we think is happening in our head, we are coming from that ego. So yes, this portion right here, I want to talk about the cause of relationships. Where do we come from? If a relationship isn't going the way that we want to, or better yet, if it is, how do we encourage that? How do we propel a great or a good relationship into a great relationship. And Reverend Gail touched upon this, the law of attraction, what Ernest Holmes talks about. So I have a couple of quotes here that I want to say. And the first one is this: life is a mirror of king and slave. Emerson said, if you want a friend, be a friend. And I think that is one of the things that we've been talking about here. We've been saying things, be the change that you want to see in the world. So yes, if you were looking for a friendship, if you are looking for a partnership, look at yourself. Everything, again, is cause and effect. Life is the effect, spirit is the cause, but it is our thoughts and our patterns of thoughts that create and direct spirit, directs cause to then make the effect of what we want to experience. So if your experience of life isn't exactly what you want it to be, don't expect that other person to change. You first change what the thoughts are within yourself. And yes, part of any relationship is forgiving. There are plenty of times in my relationship that my significant other wants to wring my neck. And there's times that I want to wring their neck. But it's taking those 3 breaths and calming myself down and coming from a place of the foundation of spirit and realizing that regardless of what's happening in this moment, that person I love. And I want to continue to build upon that relationship and build upon that love. And so I curb that initial ego response in that situation. Ernest Holmes also says, when we find we are without friends, the thing to do is the once to send our thoughts out to the whole world. Send it full of love and affection. Everything that we've said here today can be boiled down to that. Love. We talk about love from ourselves to the other person, but that love is also the capital L, which is spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. A great word to use for that higher power is love, because that's all there is in the universe, regardless of what you see. And so when you can understand that and calm yourself down in the ego-driven moment and come from that place of love within yourself, within your heart, it allows miraculous things to happen. It changes the course of history. Love does that. And you have that power of love within yourself. So if you are looking for that relationship or looking to change the relationship that you're in, change the love that you have within yourself. Change the love about yourself and change the love that you have for others. So I now open it up again for those thoughts and what my friends have to say about that.
Actually, we received a comment from one of our listeners today, and I think it's a great topic for all of us to banter on. And the person said that we need to compromise in a healthy relationship. That compromise, here it is. Compromise is also very critical in healthy relationships. I want to throw that out to you guys. What are your thoughts on compromise in relationships, or how do you view that concept in relationships?
You're muted.
Darn it, I muted myself.
Unmute Cheryl.
Cheryl, I love you. Anyway, yes, compromise is definitely. Now, compromise doesn't mean compromising your morals or your values. We're not talking about that. We're talking about finding the middle ground of relationships, because a lot of times, like Reverend Cheryl was talking about, we walk side by side. We may pick and choose who we walk alongside. But the compromise is finding that common ground, that balance. Like, oh golly, what's her name? popped out of my head, but she's always doing things. But you know what? I can tell you this in my relationship, that my significant other does all the work in this particular area. Now they could be full of resentment because they seem like they're doing all the work in that particular area. But when you open up and see our relationship as a whole, I do all the work in another area where they aren't as strong. And that's the relationship, the partnership, the compromise, is knowing the strength of each of you, that you complement each other. Just like oil and vinegar, they do not mix. But I tell you what, you shake them up, you put them together, you put them on a salad. Ooh, that is so good. So compromise is definitely, how do you like that? I put it in a salad dressing for compromise. Where does this stuff come from? I have no idea, but I just love it. So yes, compromise is a great way to promote, to build that healthy relationship. So I turn it over to, I don't see anybody else there, but just unmute yourself and go for it.
So I'll jump in after you, Reverend William. So what I love about the word compromise is that, number one, I think it's essential. I think it's essential in everything, whether it is something as large as our globe, whether it's something as large as our country, whether it's something as more intimate and unique as our individual relationships, or even our romantic relationship. It's even true within our center. It's true within the HOA that you might live in, or your condominium complex. Compromise is essential. And the way I like to look at compromise is, because some people, as Reverend William said, have the idea that that means somehow you need to really move away from what you morally feel is right, is correct, or what I'd like to say is truth. And I think the words that I like better are alignment. We don't always have to be in agreement. In other words, we're not agreeing 100%, but we are aligned. In other words, no one is feeling challenged from a moral standpoint, and we may not have the exact same answer, but we're willing to be in alignment and work together for the greater good. So thank you so much, Gentle Creature, for your comment on compromise, as well as all of the other comments that have been so impactful today. What I like to say is be in alignment versus always needing to be in agreement. And again, I think alignment is essential.
I'm going to follow Reverend Gail on that. I think, I think compromise gets a bad rap, and we have all these ideas about it, that it means you're giving something up that you love, so just so that you can hang in a relationship. But I agree. And I think this whole idea of when we come together with disagreements and with others, whatever the relationship is, it really gives us an opportunity to see what's important inside of ourselves. Because I know with relationships, not just of the intimate sort, but with friendships or working relationships that I have with people, when I'm met with that kind of disagreement, it allows me to look within myself and say, is this something I really want to hold on to? Is it really that important? So these opportunities that will come to us with differences and opposing ideology, or just opposing perceptions, it really gives us an opportunity to grow and expand ourselves and learn what's really, really important for us. So I'm glad that whatever that was, hopeful creature, or whatever creature brought that to our discussion. Thank you for that. And I don't know who would like to follow. Anybody want to chime in, or closing comments? Anyone?
Then I will take it to, I think we're about 10 minutes out, so let's just go ahead and take it into our final segment of this. What we're going on this week at the center is really stimulating. On Thursday, we have the Higher View with Dr. Laura. It's going to be at 10 o'clock. All of these are the 10 o'clock live shows. And then on Friday, it's Life on Love with Reverend Charles. And he's going to tap into the unlimited power of love. I love that idea. There, I said it, love. Anyway, then Saturday, we have a guided meditation with Reverend Dr. Joe Hooper. So that should be pretty exciting. I haven't been to one of his meditations in a while. I'm definitely going to make that one. And then all classes and events, just remember, these all start at 10 o'clock. And then next week, I just would like to give a little plug to, I'm going to be doing the Tuesday show, and it's called, oh my goodness, Spiritual Hindsight. So how do you look at your past and rewrite your story in a spiritual way, in a way that comes from a place of love, and look at all the incidents and all the things that have occurred in your life, and how do you then rewrite your story or look at it from a different perspective? Sometimes that's the best way to heal something, is to get out of your own perspective and look at it from a different point of view. So I hope y'all will join us. And then, of course, next Wednesday, we will have our Fabulous Five again. I'm not sure what the topic is, but I'm sure it's going to be great, whatever it is. And now I'd just like to offer something to you that, you know, when we do these shows, we do this strictly for love. I mean, it's all something that is on our hearts, and we have this divine urge to share all this with you. But it does cost for us to do this. So I really wish that you would think about giving an offering, a love offering to the center, so that we can keep bringing this great programming to you, and all of these different aspects of our center, and all the different voices that are out there ready to, you know, all of us can in some way. Everything that I've seen or watched gives me a nugget. It gives me something, a new tool, something to use. So really think about stepping out there and helping us keep this going. And so now I'd just like to say, anybody else have any other thoughts or closing things? Anybody want to give a plug to their show? Yes, Dale.
Well, it's not a plug. Somebody asked a question, and I think if we have a moment, somebody would like to answer it. Reverend William, did you see the question about if parties are really far apart? Here we go. It says, please give concrete examples of alignment when the parties are far apart. Anybody want to jump in with some examples of that? How to align people?
Well, I don't know if I've got concrete examples, but this is one thing that we do know. Just like in prayer work, spirit is everywhere. So there is no disconnect. So just because a relationship, that friend, that family member is across the United States on the other side of the globe, or heck, just in the next town over, and you can't get to them, you are not separate at all. You are always connected. My suggestion is, don't look at it as if that you are separated in that sense, because every time that you think about that person, those thoughts go out. Phone calls, emails. Now with this new technology, what we're doing right here today, Zoom, and what this quick quack unit that we're doing today, I don't know what it's called, but it's not Zoom, but it's another one of those multimedias. You can always be connected. You are not disconnected. All you need to do is pick up a phone call and say, hey, I was thinking of you. What's going on? I would encourage you not to be the person that goes, oh, gee, how come people aren't calling me? You know what? Call someone. Don't wait to be called. Be the person that does that calling, and contact your friends and keep those relationships going, or cultivate new ones. It is yours to do. Because Ernest Holmes says this, and I'd like to close my thoughts with this. Love is the greatest healing and drawing power on earth. Ernest Holmes said that on page 298, paragraph 3. Love is the greatest healing and drawing power on earth. So when you are coming from love, you have love in your heart, there is no better or greater attraction to yourself than that. So give out that love. So Bucky, I hope that helps you out a little bit more. But if not, our center is always open. Just give us a phone call, and we are happy to take phone calls, and let's have conversations on a private level. It doesn't matter. We are always here to help you out. And that's my thought on that closing. So I'll turn it back over to Reverend Cheryl, or if any other of you have any more comments about that, I would love to hear them. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to jump in on that one? No? Okay. but I hope that was self-explanatory there. So from what William had to say. So let's just get in a comfortable space right now, and we're going to close this session out and just sit back, or just whatever you're doing, just get your mind out of whatever's going on and just go to that place of just that calm, peaceful serenity within each and every one of us. That is our natural state of being. And just know with me that this one beautiful, magnificent power is the essence of all that we are. Everyone and every person is connected eternally to this beautiful power. And I know that as we leave this room today, there is clarity of thought, there's love in our hearts, and that all of these thoughts that have come forth today have added to the richness of our lives. And we recognize that we are mighty spirits, always capable of being at choice and always making the decisions coming from that place of love. That is our goal. That is the essence of who we are. We are love, we are peace, we are serenity, we are joy, and we are beauty. So let's just understand and know that each person that we touch, we hear their voice, and we use our voice equally. And so it is. Amen.